She loved gardening, and her yard always looked neat, and I would wave to her on Saturday mornings when she was working on her flowers, and she was always smiling. This happened on January 25th, 2019, and that Friday morning was very cold for Houston. I was making coffee when I heard 4 loud pops. I thought it was fireworks at first, but something felt wrong. I looked out the window and saw someone running away from Liz's driveway and getting into a truck, and then the truck sped off. I went outside with my phone ready to call 911, and Liz was there lying on the ground near her driveway, and she wasn't moving. There was a small table and some boxes nearby from the garage sale that she was setting up. Neighbors started coming out of their homes looking confused and worried. The paramedics came quickly and worked on Liz, but it was clear that things were very bad. Later, I found out that she had passed away at the hospital. She was only 29 years old, and I never thought something so awful could happen in our neighborhood. The police said Liz had been shot at close range by someone who walked up to her. A neighbor's security camera caught part of it, and the video showed a person getting out of a black Nissan Frontier, walking up to Liz, shooting her, and driving away, and it all happened in seconds. Liz and her husband Sergio were loved by everyone. They were high school sweethearts and had been married for about 4 years. They loved Star Wars and Harry Potter and went to conventions together. And the garage sale Liz was having that morning was to help pay for a trip to Universal Studios to celebrate their 5th anniversary. And knowing this made her death even sadder. After Liz died, the neighborhood changed drastically. People were sad and scared, and we kept wondering who could have done this. Was it someone she knew? Was it random? The police talked to neighbors and looked at security videos, but they didn't find any answers. They released the video of the suspect in the truck, hoping someone would recognize them, and nobody did. I kept thinking about that morning. Could I have done something to help? Could I have seen more, remembered a license plate? And that guilt stuck with me. I would sit and stare at Liz's house, hoping to see her again, even though I knew that I wouldn't. The empty driveway was a painful reminder of what had happened, and Sergio moved out a few months later, totally understandable. It must have been too hard for him to stay in the house with all of those memories, and that house was sold and new people moved in. They're nice, but to me it will always be Liz's home. And years have passed, but the case is still unsolved. Sometimes the news will run a story about Liz, hoping to keep her memory alive, and the reward for information has grown, but no one has come forward. And it makes me so angry to know the person who did this is still free out there. I joined a local group that helps with unsolved cases. We hold events, hand out flyers, and try to keep cases like Liz's in the public eye. It's not much, but it feels like I'm doing something. Liz and her family deserve justice. Every year on the anniversary of her death, I leave yellow roses at her driveway, as yellow was her favorite color. Other neighbors do the same, and it's a quiet way to show that we haven't forgotten her. Sometimes at night, I look out my window and wonder if the answer is closer than we think. Did someone see something that they're too scared to tell? Could the killer be nearby? Not knowing has become very hard. Liz's death taught me that life is fragile, that bad things don't always make sense. But it also showed me how people can come together during very tough times. Our neighborhood has changed, and we're more careful to look out for each other even more now. We value small moments like that. I miss Liz. I miss her smile and kindness, and I carry her memory with me and will keep trying to get justice for her. Someone has to. She deserves it.
Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so.
Ah, thank God it was just a dream. I thought I killed them. I was awakened by a terrible nightmare, and my breathing was haggard. You know those dreams when everything seems too realistic, only when it gets broken by some factor you realize that was just a dream and not reality. I keep having those the past week, and the worst part is, sometimes I get too invested in them that I feel like I'm doing all those bad things. How should I address them? Yes, they make me feel like I'm inside the PUBG world. I would name them PUBG dreams. Hi Samuel, up for a match tonight? Ready to kill some butt in the games? It was Ethan. He started game talk the moment he saw me. Wherever I go, there's always someone who's charged up and all enthusiastic about the games. There's always discussion about how many kills to achieve next. We all give ourselves a new target each day and also set up a competition among ourselves. And the moment I get home, everyone is calling me to come online. I'm all games too, but sometimes I want some space because it feels like these RPG games are taking over my mind. Guess that's why I'm having these weird dreams for the past few days. There are 4 of us who are more into PUBG than other online games. Even our rooms are themed accordingly. Each one of us owns the game's costume, including a helmet, camouflage bag, and med kits in our room. Mine is placed right inside the study table. We have a fake replica of AWM M416 and a few pistols decorated on the armory portion of our walls. There's a good thing about all this, and it's that even in my sleep, I'm subconsciously aware of my surroundings. So whenever I'm dreaming and I hear a sound, I feel like I get up, pick a pistol from my armory, and move around similarly as I do in the game. Anyway, my exams are just around the corner, and because of all the gaming with my friends, I'm not able to focus on my studies at all. At this rate, I feel like I'm going to fail, and if I do, trust me, my father is going to kill me. It's not like I don't want to study, but whenever I pick up my book, it's either Mason, Ethan, or Carlos. Someone is constantly giving a call and asking for a match. Even though I know they only do this to increase their ranking since I've never lost a single game and am an MVP player, I have a weird personality where I cannot say no to anyone. It doesn't matter what the situation's calling for. If anyone's asking me to do something, I would always say yes. You can call me people pleaser if you want, but that's just how I am. This is why even when the midterms are over our heads, I cannot stop playing the game. Sam, what are you doing? You know there are only 4 days remaining till the exam, right? I was in the middle of the game when my father sneaked up in my room and started scolding me. He wasn't supposed to come today, so what in the world is he doing here? I was just taking a break, Father. My voice broke as I made up a weak excuse. Huh? You're saying you were studying before this? He crossed his arm and asked while raising his eyebrow. Now, for those of you who don't know, my father does this whenever he's suspicious of me, or he knows I'm lying about the topic in discussion. Also, he's in the army, so most of the time he's away from home and doesn't come often. This is the main reason I get away with so many things despite him being so strict over everything. But I have no clue why he came today instead of 3 days later. For the days that are left, I'm calling over Pedro's sons to have study sessions with you. Understood? Yep, he has caught on to my lies. That is why he's calling over those 2 nuisances. Let me tell you a little something about Uncle Pedro's twins, Brandon and Blake. They're not only just any bookworms, they are like buzz killers. If anyone's in a fun or good mood, they always say things that ruin it. I hate those 2, and my dear father knows it very well. His way of punishment is always bizarre, such as this one. The only reason for him summoning my sworn enemies are because I lied and haven't been studying, and as my punishment, he has summoned them. And their presence means I won't be able to get a single moment to have fun. Hell, I won't even be able to get a chance to breathe freely. I feel pressured wherever such well-mannered know-it-alls are around. Makes me feel self-conscious. Anyway, so the next day when I woke up, Father had already gone back to his post, and guess who dropped by in the afternoon? Brandon and Blake. They came in like they owned the house and went directly into my father's study. Now, if you don't want them to snitch on me to Father, I had to study as well, so I grabbed my book and followed them. As I was studying, all the while getting annoyed by 2 unwanted presences, I couldn't help but think about what others might be doing, and my mind drifted off to the game. Focusing on books was getting harder, and my migraines started to hit off, so I decided to take a break for a quick nap. It was around 5:45 p.m., and thinking of a 15-minute room, I headed to my room. The moment I closed my eyes, I drifted off to sleep, and within a few moments, I was having a dream. In that dream, this world where we lived was the map of PUBG, and the people surrounding us were players whom I had to kill. Since I couldn't play the game all day on PC, enjoying it in this dream wasn't all that bad. I moved around the house, and the only thing I could find was a pistol. For some reason, I knew the weapons in my room were replicas, but since it was a dream, they should work fine. Nonetheless, I grabbed whatever weapon my mind thought would work and headed forward to find enemy players. The only people I spotted were the twins. Even in my dream they looked annoying. Blowing their heads off was going to be fun. I was going to take headshots on them. I hid behind a door and aimed the pistol towards Blake's head, and then bang! He fell on the floor. And Brandon started to look around to see where the firing came from. So I hurried before he could take out his weapon and took a shot at him as well. He fell lifeless on the ground, but something felt weird. They didn't become crates as I was expecting. I rushed towards them and looked around. Is this not one of those dreams I keep having? The moment this thought crossed my mind, my face immediately started to turn pale. What did I do? Should I run? Should I call for help? But they will know I killed them. How should I explain this to Father? No, this can't be real. Every single time I have these, they always seem this real, but know all too well they aren't. Maybe because this is not the actual game, but inside my dream. That's why they haven't turned into crates yet. Maybe if I wait a bit longer, they will turn. Should I just go back to sleep? Yes, I should. I should go back to my room and sleep. And I know, just as always, I would wake up from this nightmare any minute now. With all these going on inside my mind, I strode back to my room without even caring to put the pistol back and laying on my bed. I dozed off as I closed my eyes, but instead of waking up on my own, someone else shook me awake. I looked over the man standing right in front of me, and it was Father. Phew, thank God it was a nightmare. As I thought that, I noticed my father's pale face as he stared at my hand. What is he looking at? I followed his gaze and found myself holding the pistol. What? No, this can't be. But that was just a nightmare. Father, I thought, it was... Before I could explain myself, he walked out of my room while locking it behind him. No, Father, listen to me. I swear I didn't do this on purpose. Father! I banged on the door while screaming in an attempt to explain myself, but he didn't give me a chance to explain. There was no other choice but to wait for what was to follow. My legs were feeling numb, and I fell as I started wailing. I was still wishing for all of this to turn out to be a nightmare, but unfortunately, it didn't. Father came back with a few people, possibly cops, and they took me inside a van that seemed like it was supposed to be for prisoners. I didn't intend to kill the twins, but still, they're not listening to what I had to say, and it was supposed to be a nightmare. Only if this was a PUBG game, I would have killed every single one of these people, stolen their vehicle by now, and made a run for the safety zone. For I am the all-time MVP player.
Patapsco State Park used to be one of my favorite places in the entire world. I grew up just outside of Baltimore in a place called Woodlawn. Some of you might recognize that name, but probably not for the best of reasons. I went to Woodlawn High School, same one that Adnan Syed and Hyman Lee went to, and the same one made infamous in the podcast Serial. For those of you not in the know, Serial was probably the first big true crime podcast, and it told the story of how Adnan supposedly murdered Hyman, who was his girlfriend at the time she was killed. It cast a long shadow over Woodlawn, and Baltimore's reputation had been in the toilet ever since The Wire came out during my final year of middle school. I used to love both places, and I spent what's probably an embarrassing amount of time defending both in various online game lobbies. But then came the day when I was no longer able to defend Baltimore or the wider county, and that just so happened to be the day that I decided never to visit Patapsco State Park ever again. My girl and I decided to visit during the summer of 2014, as Patapsco has a ton of different places to camp that came with their own table and fire ring. I'd spent almost my entire life hiking and camping around that park, hence why it was one of my favorite places. And that also meant that I knew the place like the back of my hand. Like how I knew one of the most secluded and picturesque places to hike was between the river and the train tracks. You had this stretch of barely trodden trail right there next to the river, and provided a train didn't roll past every so often, you might think it was a scene from a fairy story or something. which is obviously why I was so excited on showing my girlfriend at the time, because I figured if I thought it was pretty, she would go absolutely nuts over it, you know? Anyway, we drive out to Patapsco, found ourselves a free campsite, then once we were all set up, we crossed the train tracks and started heading for the river. We're about 10 to 15 minutes into the hike. My girlfriend is absolutely loving the river and was taking all kinds of pictures on her phone when suddenly we heard voices from somewhere on the other side of the water. The river isn't all that wide, but since it was summer and all the trees and bushes were in bloom, we couldn't see who it was until someone suddenly burst out from the bushes and ran into the river. They looked scared, and as they were running, their foot must have caught on a rock or something because they suddenly just splashed down into the water in what looked like a pretty nasty fall. I was about ready to jog up the bank a little to see if the guy was okay and if he wanted any help. But then, right as I was about to take off, he stands up, turns around, and yells out, "No, please no." And the next thing we hear is bang, bang, bang. 3 gunshots. Then the guy fell backwards into the river again. It was all over in a matter of seconds. We heard the voices, saw the guy fall, then he stood up and he was dead. But I swear I don't think his back had even touched the water before my girlfriend and I took off running. The split second we heard those shots, it was just a complete 180. Not in terms of the direction we ran either. Everything was turned on its head. One minute I was the happiest I'd been for many, many months, and the next, we were quite literally running for our lives. I mean, I know it wasn't us getting shot at, but I figured if someone was willing to do that, they probably didn't want any witnesses to it either. I think the thing that really sticks with me was how I didn't run as fast as I could have. The whole time my girlfriend and I were running, I was trying to keep my body between her and the shooter, thinking something like, if anyone was going to get hit, I wanted it to be me and not her. I'm not saying that to sound heroic. It was purely out of instinct. I just remember the skin-crawling sensation that came with it, though. Slowing myself down when I wanted to sprint off through the trees, all while hoping that I didn't get shot, and then hoping that if I did get shot, the bullet wouldn't go through me and hit my girlfriend, too. She was amazing, by the way. She ran like the wind and stayed as quiet as possible, and she didn't even start to slow down until we were safely back across the tracks. Without a shadow of a doubt, those were the most terrifying few minutes of my entire life. If it was just me on my own, or maybe me with like a guy friend, it would have been scary all the same. But with it being my girlfriend with me, for some reason that made it all the more terrifying. I guess there was just that natural instinct to protect her, but at the same time, I knew that if push came to shove, I wouldn't be able to protect her from a guy with a gun, especially if that person wanted to do us harm. The best I could do was try to shield her, and I'm proud of myself for doing that, but it still made for a terrifying few minutes. We ended up getting out of there safely, and we called the cops as soon as we were able, but I don't know anything about the person who got shot. And as far as I know, their killer has never been caught.
It was the day when my boss asked me the most bizarre article to publish about the LGBTQ+ community, since they had always been so private and secretive about themselves. By the way, in my opinion, it was not true. I had seen them being open and oversharing about themselves, but my boss wanted to go undercover and get along with them to get the inner scoop for the article. He did not give me a clear point about what it was that I was supposed to look for. Instead, he just said, "You'll know when you find it." It was frustrating for me to work with him any longer, but since I needed the experience to get a bigger opportunity, I had no other choice. As he instructed, I downloaded Tinder and created a profile for myself. I put my sexual preference on bi and started to wait for the moment when someone gets matched with me. In the meantime, I asked my other gay and lesbian friends some questions about their lives, but whatever answer they gave me did not seem to satisfy me. It was Thursday afternoon when I got matched with a girl named Julie, who had put on her profile that she was a lesbian. As I chatted with her, she told me that she was not satisfied with her sexuality and was thinking of transitioning. I got a strong urge to talk some sense into her and explain to her that she could love her the way she is, but I couldn't because there was a huge possibility it could blow up my cover. So I played along and tried to act as naturally as I could. She also told me that she had recently accepted herself and broke up with her boyfriend because she no longer felt attracted to him. That is when she felt she was a lesbian. It felt similar to my other gay and trans friends, so I figured not being comfortable in their skin the way we do must be something these people might have in common among themselves. Anyway, she told me she did not want to rush into a relationship so soon, and thinking of taking things slow, which was good for me because that way I could not be feeling too guilty about using her for my article. So we started as friends and continued to engage in chatting daily. I soon found out she was 19 years old and figured she might have made a rash decision by rushing into these sexual identity things, but except for feeling guilty, there was nothing else I could do. There was no way I was going to risk my job over this. You can call me selfish for this, but it was the right thing to do for myself. One evening, my boss called me to inform me that I was taking too much time, and as a result of his impatience, he was transferring the project to someone else. For some reason, I felt a heavy burden getting lifted off my chest because I was tired of deceiving Julie, and I did not want to do that anymore. Now all I needed was to come clean to her, but I did not have enough guts for it, so I simply avoided opening Tinder. 2 weeks later, I got a text from her asking me out on a date, which I agreed to because it was the perfect opportunity for me to tell her everything. We agreed to meet in a cafe in the evening, and she told me she would be wearing a green dress. When I saw the girl introducing herself to me as Julie, I couldn't help but think she looked older than the age she told me. But the way she was talking and holding up the conversation, I was sure it was the same girl I had been chatting with the past few days. She seemed nice and bubbly, so I figured I might be wrong about her age. Hey, want to come with me to see something nice? As we were about to say goodbye to each other, she suggested. I wanted to deny it, but I was already feeling enough guilt about not being able to tell her the truth, so I agreed. She walked me to her car and started talking about her childhood as we got in. As she was driving me to the area which seemed secluded, she started telling me how she murdered her gardener when she was 17. I started panicking and asked her to stop the car, but she turned her head to me and said, "Did you think I believed your story of being from the LGBTQ+ community? Hell, even I am not one of them. I was just looking for prey." Her face seemed so monstrous with that evil smile that it freaked me out completely. "Why are you doing this to me?" I said with my voice trembling as I kept panicking. "Oh no, honey, don't be mistaken. None of this is your fault except matching with me on Tinder. It's just that I love seeing others in pain." As she said that, she took out a gun and pointed it at my head. Guess she figured I was planning to jump off the car, so she did not hesitate once to fire the bullet and injuring my left hand. I let out a loud, painful scream, and in response, she moaned and started laughing, which was even more terrifying. I had to do something if I wanted to get myself out of this messy situation, but I could not figure out what to do. That was when my head stopped working, and I simply started wrestling her to take the gun away from her. As I was already in pain and bleeding, I wasn't going to hold out any longer, so I somehow managed to make her lose the balance of the car. As a result, we got into an accident, but she was a tough one. Even after getting injured, she was still holding up, while I was barely keeping myself conscious in the situation. As my vision faded, I heard someone rushing toward the car, and the fading voice of the girl trying to murder me. "No, sir, everything is fine. I will call an ambulance myself. You don't..." These sentences are followed by a gunshot, and everything went blank after that. When I woke up, I was in an emergency room, and a man was sitting across from me. I turned my head, only to find out that the girl was lying unconscious on the bed next to me. The man told me he was driving past us when he saw the accident, but when he went to help us, the other girl tried to kill him. As she pointed the gun at him, he acted quickly, and the bullet accidentally got fired into her stomach. Even after that, he called the ambulance on us and got us admitted to the emergency room. The police came and got my statement. I ended up telling them everything that had happened the past few days, and as I got discharged, the first thing I did was quit my job, which was the cause of my suffering. One thing I was sure of, though, was that bullet in Julie's stomach was not an accident. That guy intended to do that. After a thorough investigation, it was revealed that Julie had conditions of IED, APD, etc., which were developed at a very young age when she was being forced to live the life of a guy by her parents. She killed them and ended up in a mental hospital. But it was 6 months ago when she ran away from there and started killing people. I felt relieved that I got out of the situation when I did. Otherwise, God knows what might have happened to me.